Well, I'll give you a little history of Solomon Color. My great grandfather was an orphan and he started a coal mine. This is during the 1880s. So my grandfather, he had three brothers and they kind of kept that coal mine going. And in 1927, my grandfather decided to diversify from coal. He was wanted to get into minerals. And so he took the slate that was a byproduct from the coal mine, and that was the first black pigment. And then he brought in hematite ore out of northern Michigan and ground that up. And this is, so 1927 is when we started. The company was called Solomon Grinding Service. And the reason it was called Solomon Grinding Service because we ground up the slate and we ground up the hematite ore. And then we brought in ochre from Georgia. So we had three primary colors. We had a slate for black, we had the hematite ore, which was kind of a reddish brown, and then we had the ochre. And that was, at those days, was only used for mortar between brick. We didn't color any block. So if you look at Chicago and you see in fact, he supplied, I think, all the mortar during the 30s and 40s. If you look at a lot of the brick homes, they have a kind of a brownish red mortar, and that's from the hematite ore. So that's how we got into the pigment business, if you will. But a lot of the hematite ore was used for foundry purposes, or the catalyst for the sands, and that was well over about 60% of the business back in those days. And then also for cattle feed, and so we sold for the cattle feed mineral blocks. So we always had that on the side business, but the pigment side really started to grow, I would say in the 60s and 70s was when the pigments started to really take off. And the coal mine closed down in 1959. So it was totally over at that time.
Yeah. I can recall the early 70s. Early 70s is we had a few colors, ample colors, but mostly still gray. And it started about early 70s.
Probably in the 70s. You're right, Mike. I started full-time with my dad. I unloaded ore cars when I was in high school and so forth, but I started full-time in 1979. So I'm the third generation. My son's the fourth generation of the Solomon family. In the 1980s, we started to produce liquid color, and that was the, cat's meow then, and that did very well. We still sell a lot of liquid color, mostly on the ready-mix side of the business. 7 years ago, I made a big decision and decided, hey, if we're going to be in this pigment business, we have to get into granular pigment. And that's when we spent a lot of money and built a plant that's a different process than the typical spray dried. And it's paid off. In fact, right now we're looking at building a second plant. So yeah, it certainly has evolved. We've been very blessed as a company, and we supply color to the decorative side of the business and to the ready-mix side, and then also personally concrete products. And so they all represent about a third of our business total.